feeling any kind of stress or something, or it's all good? We can discuss things in detail. See, this is the time to be 100% dedicated on the preparation part. So if in today's time, if you are having multiple things going around, then you will definitely feel stressed and not adequately prepared. So I would highly suggest that December, Jan are these 2 months where you should be completely focused on this exam. If you have some school and college work or job related stuff which is extra, try to keep that aside for a while, or try to do very minimal as much as possible, because this is the time that you need 100% concentration on this particular exam. If you are 100% focused on this exam, then you will not feel so much stressed. And like I have always said, stress is the enemy of creativity. So if you are high on stress, your creativity will go down. Your ability to think something creative, your ability to think about new ideas, or your ability to apply that creative logic goes down if you are stressed. So the first and foremost thing is stay active, stay busy, and keep preparing so that you don't feel stressed. Okay. Majority of the questions here are fundamentally observation and common sense based questions. So when you are relaxed, your common sense ability is very high. When you are stressed, the common sense ability, your memory retention goes down drastically. Right. So now I think we should start. Okay. Fine. What was the first topic? Time management. Okay. Now, just a second. I would like to put something on the share so that we can discuss things around. Let's say this particular share more. So see, the first and foremost thing, still some, okay, yeah, well, so see, the first and foremost thing in time management is the ability to calculate and compartmentalize what time is required for what activity. Correct? जैसे आपको बेंगलोर से दिल्ली फ्लाई करना है, so what will you calculate? Let's say you are taking a flight, so you will not just calculate the flight time as the only time of travel, right? You will also calculate मेरे घर से एयरपोर्ट तक जाने में कितना टाइम है, और फिर एयरपोर्ट के बाद एयरपोर्ट पे चेक इन में कितना टाइम है, चेक इन के बाद ऑन बोर्डिंग में कितना टाइम है, फिर टोटल फ्लाइट का टाइम, फिर वही सेम प्रोसेस रिपीटेड, एंड देन फ्रॉम लेट्स से आई रीच दिल्ली, from Delhi to my place, and you also calculate a 15-20 minutes of buffer time of booking an Uber, booking an Ola, or having some extra traffic time and all that stuff. So all in all, when you say that okay, I am flying to Delhi tomorrow, what I do is I include all the additional time which is I am going to spend eventually when I am traveling from Bangalore to Delhi, right? So the same way, the logic is whenever you're doing time management, you should be specifically knowing where exactly my time is going to get spent, right? So time management is not an individual identity. Time management has two components. One is time and one is activity. So you should precisely know how many activities are there in that particular bigger task, in that particular event, in that full process, and then based on that full process, based on those minor activities in that entire process, you'll be able to completely get a good idea about how to manage time for each activity, right? So for the same example, let's say I'm taking a flight. there are multiple options for me to reach airport. I can drive my own car, I can ask a friend to drop me, I can actually take a local bus which is going for airport, I can take a metro, or I can take multiple things. But the best way is to book a Uber which is dedicated for airport pickup, right? Especially if it's a night hour drive flight, late night flight and all, I would prefer me not driving, because the chances of me uh, you know missing certain things is very high when I'm taking all the stress on myself. So the same way, you should be able to calculate, okay, how much is that activity important and how much is the best efficient way to complete that thing. So for example, this particular sketch of a tap, right? It's a wash basin tap. Now, me as a designer, first will calculate, okay, if this is the question, how much time I should dedicate to first draw the outline. Okay, so I am breaking it into smaller components to manage my time better. So instead of just doing the sketch from left to right and start shading from the first second, what I would do is I would just create a rough sketch of this particular size and shape of the tap. Okay, and I would first draw a skeletal diagram. Skeletal diagram in the sense, like, this is my tap going, then there are these two, I mean, this is the funnel through which the water will come out, and these are the two tap sections where I'm actually having the control of the tap. One is for hot, one is for cold, right? So first I draw a structure where I'm mapping where exactly is the boundary of my sketch, right? So a lot of people do these kind of mistakes, that they don't plan out their sketching. A lot of times people draw the front part first and the background later. So what happens is, when you're drawing a perspective line, let's say, and you have already drawn a face or a figure in the front, then every time you try to draw a perspective sketch, the lines are actually hitting the face of the person you have already drawn before, or you are trying to do the eraser thing and removing the previous sketch marks and all those things. So instead of doing that, we should plan that, okay, if this is my background and if this is the person who is in the foreground, I should first draw the background and then leave a little space for the foreground. Foreground means the front part. So when I plan this way, I am first drawing the background, which is with very little pressure on the pencil. Then I am drawing the foreground with a slightly thicker pencil or with a pen or a marker, so that I make my foreground more important than my background. Depends on the use case also, but this is how you should plan things. So planning, it means breaking down each activity into smaller components. So if I am supposed to draw this tab, what I would do is I would basically draw a skeletal structure first. Skeletal structure means first draw the outlines of the tab, and once those outlines are ready, show you. Let's say this is my sketch. Okay, so first what I would do is, if this is the boundary, what I would first do is I just draw a tab like this, and then I draw a tab like this. And if you plan each of your questions like this, then it becomes very easy for you to calculate time. Otherwise, you will be end up spending a lot of time in the unnecessary things, which will not help you score more. See, just a second. See this sketch, right? Are you able to see my sketch?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So see, what I did is I just drew a very basic structure of the tap. It took me just hardly 5-6 seconds. So what I now did is that I have defined, okay, this is the size of my control knob and this is the overall size of the tap in respect of that entire frame. Now the frame may not look perfectly straight or 90-degree, but yeah, I mean, assuming that I will actually get the full space of the drawing. So once this is done, then I am pretty much free. I mean, I don't have to then calculate, okay, the size has disproportionately bigger or smaller compared to the overall size. So once the outline is ready, then the second part is doing the shading. So if you see this particular part, the shading is not done properly. There is some kind of distortion or some kind of confusion in the way surface is blending with each other. Is it a square section which is getting twisted on all the way till top, or is it a cylindrical section which is having reflections? I'm not very clear. So this is where you need to be very, very precise before doing shading. Just try to draw the outlines and see, are the outlines correct or not. And one very important point to remember is, if you are not confident about the shading part, don't do shading at all. Even if you don't do shading but your lines are correct, the proportions are right, you'll still get marks, right? So instead of doing this kind of a zigzag pattern on the tap or on the knob just to show that it's glossy or there are some ridges for gripping, instead of that you can just draw simple straight lines. So the way you did here, the same way you should do here. Now instead of making it consistent, instead of making it symmetric, what people do is they jump onto shading and they jump onto these kind of extra peripheral activities. Now if you see from a structural fundamental perspective, you will feel that this tab looks kind of a twisted or distorted thing. Now it may be a design thing, but you are not able to clearly represent it as a proper tab because of the precision issues. So जहाँ पे precision distort होने लगते हैं, वहाँ पे आपका idea भी distort हो जाता है. So people will not have good clarity कि ये हो क्या है. जैसे यहाँ पे see in this particular top part of the shading, this looks like I am actually getting a surface which is this thick, and now suddenly the surface has become narrow, and then again it is kind of going towards the thicker side. So now what is this happening? इस area में इस U shape के surface पे क्या हो रहा है, कुछ clear नहीं है. Are there 4 surfaces? Are there 3 surfaces? Which surface is merging in which surface? It's not clear. So instead of you creating extra shading which is unnecessarily confusing for the judges or for the examiner, try to keep things simple. Try to keep things clear and unambiguous. When you go for unambiguous stuff which is like very simple and clear, it becomes very easy for the examiner to give you good marks. It becomes very easy for them to judge, like, okay, this guy actually knows the basics of line drawing and basics of shading. Now see the same effect of making ridges. I would have done it like this way. Now see, here is the thing. If you see this sketch versus this sketch, my horizontals are still fixed. Both the tab controls are on the same horizontal line, and the tab is actually coming like this. While as in this particular sketch, the tab height is variable. I mean, this tab is at a lower height and the other tab is at a higher height, right? Are you noticing this point? ये हाइट और ये हाइट चेंज हो रही है. इसका क्या मतलब है? आपका टैब या तो ओरिएंटेशन चेंज है या फिर आपका टैब का एंगल चेंज है. ये इसी सिनारियो में हो सकता है, क्योंकि जनरली टैब्स आर डिजाइन सिमेट्रिक. ऐसा नहीं कि मेरा ये टैब नीचे और ये वाला टैब का नॉब ऊपर है, राइट? Are you getting the point? So this is the kind of issues where it creates unnecessary distortion, and it is not good for presentation if you are not very much skilled in that domain. Unless until you are actually a product designer who is deliberately trying to create unsymmetric objects, this would be leading to bad score. And at the bottom, see, at the bottom of any product edges are never smudged. So product की edge जो है ना, उसमें भी sharp ending होनी चाहिए. ऐसा नहीं होगा कि ये माउस मैंने यहाँ तक डिजाइन किया और यहाँ पर एरिया पूरा स्मज कर दिया. This smudging doesn't look like water. This smudging doesn't look like a product is ending at a surface. Surface continuity end होनी चाहिए ना. You getting the point? Surface should get end of the continuity, not abruptly, not like a smudging. It should have a clean line. देखो ये जो line है ना cut, ये यहाँ पे ये surface bend होके यहाँ जा रही है. तो ये जो line है ये this line has to be precise because it's a material based product and it's a hard material. So right now when I look at the bottom part of the tap, it looks like there is some cotton kept there or there is some water. So even water, when you show spilled water, जैसे let's say I want to show spilled water. So spilled water कैसे दिखेगा? Water की भी एक edge होगी, boundary होगी. Water की boundary क्यों होती है? Water की boundary होती है because there is surface tension, right?
Sir,
Yeah.
sir, that might be the shadow of the tap.
But shadow still cannot overpower the lines, right? Shadow still has to somehow show the edge of the boundary. So अगर मुझे देखो टैप का शेडो भी दिखाना है तो टैप की शेडो में ऐसे दिखाऊंगा और टैप की शेडो उस बॉटम पार्ट में थोड़ी गिरेगी इतना ज्यादा. Depends on from which angle you are actually showing, but still it will not be such a big shadow that it's actually blurring all the boundary lines. See this part. So now if I want to show there is some shadow and some water spillage, I would show it like this. Small tiny water droplets. You getting the point? That way, see, that way I am actually optimizing my time. I am not wasting so much time in creating a proper smudged surface. If you have time, if they give you like 10 marks ka questions just to draw this tap, still fine, great. But if you are having very limited time, don't get into shading unless your basic proportions are not correct. Unless your basic proportions are correct, that's a wrong way to approach. अभी देखो ये जो टैप का ये जो सर्कल है ना concentric circles, so there is a circle inside a circle, but it doesn't look like circle inside a circle. This thickness and that thickness is varying, it's changing. Are you getting the point? अब ये तो deliberate नहीं हो सकता है. So whenever I am compromising on the precision of proportions and jumping to shading, I am actually creating something which is bound to look distorted. It will eventually feel like अरे यार कुछ गड़बड़ है. Something doesn't look right, right? And I as an examiner or anybody who is an examiner can easily spot that okay, this is a challenge here. This is something that and eventually what it shows is you are not getting polished or you're not getting skilled in one particular skill set. You are jumping from one skill to another skill without fixing the basic mistakes or basic proportions. That is where it's wrong. You getting the idea? अभी जैसे ये वाला ड्राइंग है, दिस इज स्टिल फाइन. यस ईशान.
When I draw products like anything like a bucket or anything, I usually divide the curved surfaces and the straight surfaces in blocks, like 3D blocks, and then try to fit the drawing in between them. Is that the right approach?
Yeah, that is the right approach. But like I have told you multiple times, see, always add some detail into the product. Products are never without detail. So see this particular part. I mean, it's a very simple thing that guitar strings are always connected to the tightening knob. Now all your strings are out in the air. They are not looking connected to the knob. जैसे tightening knob होता है ना पीछे, वो जो आपने बनाया तो है but उसके साथ वायर कनेक्ट नहीं किया. So there is a small mechanism there which actually connects the whole thing. That is very, very critical. And abhi dekho, even when you are drawing a very simple drawing, you should quickly identify which are the spots where there is extreme darkness. The maximum darkness spots should be shaded. So in a guitar, the maximum area of darkness is the hole where you are strumming the guitar. So this part should be darkened. That's all. The minute you darken this part and connect these strings at the back, it would be perfect. बहुत ज़्यादा कुछ नहीं करना है, but you have to do basic detailing. Basic detailing is all you need. जैसे for example this scissor, इसका proportions. So generally the blade and handle का proportion is 2:1 or 3:1 in a scissor. So that is what you need. And something very, very simple. See this connection point where this blade has to touch this edge, right? So these are the very, very small things which you need to make sure it is connected. And then this edge, see if this edge continues, are you able to see my cursor? See if this edge goes, continue till this point, then actually this pin joint is crossing that edge. If this pin joint is crossing the edge, then the scissor won't function. Are you getting the point?
But sir, do they look for such details like the last drawing you showed, the tab drawing? It was really good, but do they see that much details like the circle is concentric?
Definitely.
Or the joint is?
Definitely. Or kya? See, tab anyone can draw. My point is, if you are not adding details, you are not scoring the maximum marks. You will not be able to score 10 out of 10 or full out of full. You will not be able to score full marks. Full marks isko milenge where the things are perfectly made, right? Full marks will be given to one student. See, most people who apply for NID, CEED, UCEED kind of exams are fairly good at sketching. So, if you want to still top in that exam, if you still want to do better than those guys who are average in sketching, then you have to do what? Then you have to put in more details. See, it won't take much time. I am not saying you will take extra time to draw it perfectly. You can draw perfectly even with the same amount of time. You can add more detail just if you concentrate on those details. Just concentrate on those details. It's a very simple thing. अभी देखो ये पिन जॉइंट है ना, ये पिन जॉइंट इस स्ट्रिप के और इस स्ट्रिप के बीच में आएगा, राइट? नाउ इस स्ट्रिप के तो बीच में दिख रहा है, यहाँ पे तो बीच में दिख रहा है. बीच में मीन्स फ्रॉम दिस एज एंड दिस एज, इट्स ऑलमोस्ट इन द सेंटर. But where it comes to the other blade of the scissor, it is not in center. It is going out of the way. Right? You getting the point? So these are the small. Yeah.
What they are asking for in sketching is like simple but proportionate and accurate drawings.
Exactly.
To stylize and add extra, not necessary details much. Like just we need to draw the simple but proportion drawing.
Yes. Exactly. Proportion drawings. यार देखो product जो है ना, product की drawing हमेशा proportionate होनी चाहिए. अगर product की drawing proportionate नहीं होगी, मतलब product designer का अगर drawing proportionate नहीं होगा, तो it will create huge amount of losses. In fact, forget about losses. Product बन ही नहीं सकता अगर आपकी drawing precise नहीं हो. Because what drawings you do, then it goes to software, then the software goes to manufacturing unit, then the manufacturing unit builds prototype, then that prototype actually goes to huge number of productions, and then there is a lot of testing in between these rounds. So your design has to be very precise. And at this point in time when you are actually entering a design institute, all you should need in terms of focus is basic proportions. At least proportions सही होने चाहिए. जैसे for example, this is a keypad, right? Now the line of the keypad should be parallel. देखो ये जो line है ना keypad का, यहाँ there is no gap at this key, but there is a good amount of gap, almost 4 mm, 3 mm gap here. So this extra gap is not acceptable. This extra gap will eventually lead in low scoring. See, you started well from 1, 2, 3. When coming to 4, 5, 6, there is a slight distortion. You getting my point? There is a gap between these two, but there is no gap between these two buttons. Now the gap has to be uniform. So what I would do is I would again mark a grid. I would mark a grid on this side on the keypad, and then I'll start drawing, so that all my number pads, all my buttons are placed in parallel and in proportion. ऐसा नहीं होना चाहिए कि एक बटन बहुत बड़ा कर दिया और एक बटन बहुत छोटा कर दिया. And when you're drawing this thing, see again, every ATM machine, every swiping machine will have an enter button. There is a red button, there's a yellow button, there's a green button, right? So when you're drawing details, also add that extra detail. तभी तो आप extra score करोगे ना. Otherwise, what is the difference between anybody who is sketching a particular drawing? If everybody will sketch at the same level, then how will this give more score to you? Your target is to score better than other students, right? That's why it's important to focus on details. See, this way anybody person can draw. Most people who are decently good at sketching will draw this level of detail. But if you add more details, you will be the one getting more score. As simple as that. Fine.
And
So
sir,
yeah.
whenever I draw drawings which are sort of cylindrical, like cylindrical in shape, the two faces, the upper face and the lower face, don't come parallel. They sort of come with an angle to each other. Means I can easily recognize that.
Right.
I can draw that correctly. So what should I do for that?
See, that it all comes with practice. The minute you say recognize that okay, it's not parallel, then put a scale on top of it and see okay why it's not parallel. Then see okay, the scale looks parallel. Try to draw that same shape with the scale, and then see okay, maybe this is a line issue. If your lines are not going parallel, do a lot of line practice, and that's how you will make it. It will take time, but eventually you have to spot the mistakes and you have to come up with your own way of fixing it, right? What I generally do is I used to put some scale, this kind of scale next to my sketch, and then I'll be like, okay, this is a line, okay, fine, this is also line. The minute you start putting a scale, it starts making more sense. See, now the same swiping machine I am drawing. Okay. Now here's the thing. I'll just show you a small demo. See this one. Are you able to see my video? So it just took me 10 seconds. But the number pad, which is important part, see what is important in the swiping machine. Let's go back to your drawing. Where it is. See. What is important in a swiping machine? The swiping area. The very most important thing is the swiping area, जहाँ पे आप card swipe करते हो. And then there is number pad. So number pad you have drawn well, but the swiping area slit that you missed. तो ये वाला जो part है जहाँ पे आप swipe करते हो, right? That is very critical. So every time you draw something, one very basic thing is सबसे ज़्यादा focus होना चाहिए उसके proportions पे. सेकेंड फोकस होना चाहिए उसके ओवरऑल स्ट्रक्चर के ऊपर. ओवरऑल स्ट्रक्चर मतलब आपने जैसे ये कप है तो अब कप का साइज वर्सेस हैंडल का साइज तो ठीक है, बट कप लुक्स डिस्टॉर्टेड, कप लुक्स लाइक ऐसा कुछ तो टिल्ट हो गया. तो कप का हॉरिजॉन्टल जो वर्टिकल सिलेंड्रिकल एक्सिस है जिसपे वो कप सिलेंडर बना रहा है, दैट शुड बी परफेक्ट. सी दिस वन. तो अभी मेरा जो ऑब्जेक्ट है उसका structure जो है ना, it should look like block. It should look like that block is perfect. That block is not twisted or distorted or anything like that. That is the first and foremost thing in sketching. And then like I always tell you, first draw the basic outlines. If the basic outlines are correct, nothing wrong in that sketch. Even if you just leave the sketch at that basic drawing, it's still fine. You don't need to do sketching. But if you're doing, you don't need to do shading. But if you're doing shading, make sure that basic structure is correct first. Because shading में बहुत time जाता है. Shading, if you have to do, you have to do it very very slowly and then do the smudging and all. उसमें time waste है. Does that sketch really require shading? If they are specifically asking you to draw sunlight, direction, shadow and texture and all, then it's fine. Otherwise, there's no requirement as such. आप उसका बेसिक स्ट्रक्चर डिस्टॉर्ट करके शेडिंग करोगे, इट्स ऑफ नो यूज. फर्स्ट दैट बेसिक स्ट्रक्चर हैज टू बी करेक्ट. ओनली देन इट मेक्स सेंस. फाइन. या
Sir, while drawing products, can I use the scale?
You can use scale, not a problem. See, they don't, unless until they specifically mention don't use ruler, you can use, not a problem. You should definitely use it just to test it, that okay, are my lines parallel or not. If the lines are not parallel, then I should actually erase it. Or let's say whenever I am drawing something, देखो मैं सबसे पहले क्या करता हूँ, ऐसे एक बहुत ही हल्का सा एयर में सर्कल बनाता हूँ, something like this. Then when I feel like okay, the circle is fine, then I make another circle. Okay, let's say I want to draw a cylinder. Then I make another circle at the bottom. Okay, this one. Then when I feel like okay, these two circles are cylindrical, perfect, I'm getting the proportion that I am looking for. Then I actually start drawing on that particular curve, like a thicker line. Something like this. Then I do it this way. Okay, slightly thickening the lines. Then when I say okay, now it's ready, then I make the cup handle. This, right? So this is the way that I would be able to maintain certain proportion and I would be able to give precise geometry. So abhi if I draw a central axis between these two circles, let's say this way, right? This is a central axis, this line. Now this line actually is like, which if you see visually, it's in the center, it's going through the center of the cup, right? And if you try to draw it here in this cup which you have drawn, this cup, the center line, it looks like नीचे वाला ellipse ऐसे है और बड़ा ऊपर वाला ellipse ऐसे है. So they are not actually in line, they are slightly distorted this side. You getting the point? So वो जो distortion है, वो distortion अच्छा नहीं लगता. वो distortion will bring your score down. So this is the second point of time management, that you should precisely do activity step by step. जिस क्वेश्चन को आप अटेंड कर रहे हो, उसको सबसे पहले चेक करो कि ये क्वेश्चन कितने मार्क्स का है. इतने मार्क्स के क्वेश्चंस के लिए हाउ मच टाइम आई शुड डेडिकेट. लाइक अ सिंपल एग्जांपल वुड बी 1 mark क्वेश्चन 1 minute, 2 marks क्वेश्चन 2 minutes, राइट? वेरी सिंपल मैट्रिक. इससे ज़्यादा सिंपल नहीं हो सकता मैट्रिक. सो इफ इट्स अ ऑब्जेक्टिव टाइप क्वेश्चन, 1 minute is enough to think. If you are not able to think, see, this is the third point, that how do you do time management? How do you make sure that you attempt maximum scoring? Now I hope the sketching part is clear. Okay, now we move to the second topic. Second topic is that how to get maximum score from that question paper, right? what all we were discussing: time management, revision. Okay, revision routine we will take at the last. Strategy to attempt maximum questions. Maximum questions means you have to at least have 2 attempts for each question. So कई बार क्या होता है कि in the first attempt you will not be able to go through the questions, or let's say you found the questions not easy to solve. So in the first attempt, let's open an ID sample. सो अभी देखो, मैक्सिमम स्कोर करने का सबसे बेस्ट तरीका ये कि फर्स्ट गो थ्रू ऑल द क्वेश्चंस. लाइक जैसे कोई कोई भी आप बुक उठाते हो ना, तो आप क्या करते हो सबसे पहले, व्हेन यू गो टू अ स्टोर, लेट्स से दिस इज द बुक, यू जस्ट फ्लिप अराउंड द बुक लाइक दिस, just have a glimpse of what all is the content of the book. So once you do this way, it becomes like really easy to understand the entire overall content of the book. Now once I do this kind of a flipping, I know that okay, there are like 20% pictures, the rest of the things is like all text. This is a text heavy book. There are very few pictures, but there is majority is text. So the same way, whenever you get a hard question paper, hard copy, always go through like a full scan of the question paper. Okay, what all questions are. So let's say there are like, okay, I have reached the end of the thing. Then there are these 2 drawing questions, one more drawing, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then so there are 6 drawing based questions. Fine, ये मैंने calculate कर दिया. That is the maximum. So now I have to decide that okay, what is my drawing speed? Can I attempt all drawing 6 questions in last 1 hour or last 2 hours? So based on that, I have to mentally figure out that okay, first I will dedicate this much time in this section, second time I will dedicate in this section. Some people start the paper in the reverse orders, like they try to attempt the biggest question first, so that even if they have to somehow leave the question, if there is a time issue with them, at least they will be able to score the maximum marks questions first. So that is their philosophy. Sometimes people think that okay, if I am attempting the bigger marks questions first, right now my brain is all fresh and all, so I will be able to score better in the first big marks questions. Like 20 mark questions, attempt 6 of them or attempt 4 of the 20 mark questions each, and you have done with like the 80 marks scoring, which is decent enough to score the qualifying marks. Then let's move to the smaller questions, which are like 5 marks or 3 marks. That's one strategy. Another strategy is some people are good with the part A kind of logical reasoning and all that. So they think that okay, my sketching speed is not great. Let me first solve the easy multiple choice questions. So that way. But once you have gone through that entire paper, like first question to the last question, you get a mental picture of okay, what kind of question paper it is this time. Let's say in 2021 they have only 2 drawing based questions, or let's say there are 8 drawing based questions. So then you will have to actually calculate it mentally that okay, now this time the question paper is my type. Like drawing is my strength and I can draw pretty much all questions very easily, right? So my chances of scoring becomes higher. So that way you have to mentally calculate first. Then second, skimming level, that now I have to spend another 1 or 2 minutes for each question and see, I mean not each question, but spend another 2-3 minutes to just go through each page, like see okay, what all the different types of questions, not just reading in detail but skimming it. Schematic it in the sense that, okay, I have gone through these many options, event, sitar, Bharatanatyam, Manipuri, okay, Raja Ravi Verma, okay, Dhyanchand Award, some Venn diagram, then something like this, okay, these are the four options. ये शायद कुछ समझ में नहीं आ रहा है. So you should mentally calculate, okay, how many questions I am able to get it from the first go itself. Like ये question मैंने देखा, मुझे समझ में आ गया. Okay, the question is asking, I haven't even read the text, but I got the idea that, okay, this is about profile, this is something around about rotation. Just by looking at the options, I got a good understanding. Okay, this question is about texture identification, pattern identification. This question is about some logical mapping. This question is about, okay, equal surface area find done. This question is about rectangles. Are there, how many rectangles done? This is about shape, multiplication. Okay, I have to see how many done. This is about, okay, full rate and the cube given below image. Okay. Fine. So this is about cube. Then this one is about observe the image given below. Okay, please imagine the following process. Okay, okay, fine. This is about some rotation. Okay, which is this following? I have to talk about lifting the pencil. Okay, without lifting the pencil. Done. So this may need some drawing. So question number 22 is also fundamentally a drawing based question. I have to first try it out, right? So this is my done. So now you see, I just took another 10 minutes and I got through the entire part A of the question series. Are you getting my point? कि मैंने क्या किया यहाँ पे?
Yes, sir.
Right. So this way I got a basic scanning of the stuff, and then I move to the second part. Okay, what all is there in second part? Okay, this one drawing, ladder outside, blah blah blah. Okay, fine. Point of view. Visualize and draw the scene from the person's point of view. Local person tries to enter the room, ladder outside the window, and see the scene. Okay. The person is entering from the ladder. Okay, got it. Point of view. So this is the point of view, and I have to draw the scene from this angle. Right. Imagine in a relief situation, all that view does not. Right. So space explain interpretation in 5 lines. No colors to be used. Okay. So now it's clearly mentioned no colors to be used. So it's just a pen, single color drawing. I have to also write. Then this is about circular stamp. Right. This is something about visualize and draw the following instructions. Do not use color. There also no color. Draw a person sitting in a dining table and this is laid out in front of him or her. Okay, fine, got it. Some perspective design. Then this is an entry sitting draw the point of view and ठीक है done. Again a perspective drawing. Visualize and draw stainless steel. Again some visualization based drawing. Some rough work done. So this is my basic scanning done. So the same way, now I have a very crystal clear understanding, very simple understanding of पेपर इस बार कैसा है, पेपर में क्या क्या पूछा है, किस टाइप का ड्राइंग स्किल्स, किस टाइप का लॉजिकल रीजनिंग लगेगा, एंड बेस्ड ऑन दैट देन आई डिसाइड that okay, should I go from question number 26 onwards, should I go from bottom to top or should I go from top to bottom, and then you can very easily use this rough space work to calculate things like that. तो अभी ये जो सारे क्वेश्चंस है विजुअलाइजेशन वाले, उससे रिलेटेड मैं थोड़ा सा पहले छोटा छोटा डूडल्स ड्रॉ करूंगा in that rough space, and then I'll start attempting. So let's say I'm very good at this stamp while drawing, or let's say I'm very good with this golden glitter, or let's say मेरा perspective drawing visualization अच्छा है. So I start with question number 23. Once I'm done with it, and never start drawing in the specified area immediately. First use the space for rough work. अगर रफ वर्क में आपका पर्सपेक्टिव करेक्शन वगैरह का प्रॉब्लम हुआ, यू कैन स्टिल ट्राई. बट अगर आपने डायरेक्ट उसी पेज पे ड्रॉ कर दिया विच इज अ गिवन स्पेस, एंड इफ समथिंग इज रॉन्ग एंड एक्सीडेंटली इफ यू टेयर ऑफ द पेपर, देन इट्स गॉन. फिर कुछ नहीं कर सकते. यू कैन नॉट आस्क फॉर अ न्यू शीट और न्यू. So make sure you focus on these things. Okay. Now the time is getting over for this particular session. I'll quickly take a 30-minute break. Fine. In that 30 minutes, we can actually scan a lot of previous year question papers, and then you can tell me like how will you manage time? Okay, so just go through a lot of previous year questions paper, whether it's NID, CEED, UCEED or anything. Just go through the paper and tell me what will be your strategy. Then we can discuss that strategy in detail, and then in the second half we'll also discuss the preparation. Okay. So right now it's 11:20 in my watch. We can meet at 12, or let's say, yeah, 12 is fine. Let's take a 40-minute break. Go through all the previous year question papers, especially go through UCEED because UCEED is quite tricky. UCEED will ask you how to balance things properly. Fine.
Okay, sir.
Is that fine?
Yeah.
So 40-minute break is good enough for everyone?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Chalo. Catch you at 12.
Yes.